Hey there everybody, in this video we're going to be taking a brief look at Microsoft Azure. For those of you who aren't familiar, Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform that offers hundreds of services to an end user. So let's take a look right here, let's see what they have to offer. Let's go over here and just say all services and just take a look at everything that they offer, from machine learning to analytics, containerization, databases, DevOps, a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff I've never even heard of before. And I'd imagine there are people who even work for Microsoft who aren't familiar with all of these things. So there's a whole litany of different services that they offer. Mainly what we're going to look at today are the storage accounts, which is effectively like a Dropbox or like Microsoft OneDrive, except with this one you can hold up to 500 terabytes of data that you want stored here. Now, of course, if you are using that much of their disk space, you will be charged. Now, on that, when you first create an account with them, they give you $200 of free credits, and you can see right now I have 180 remaining here, and those are just for you to play with and kind of familiarize yourself with the different services that they do offer. Again, a lot of these aren't going to be for the average user, but if you want to create a storage account or you want to create a virtual machine, that's mainly what most people are going to be doing, most private users. And that's what I want to take a look at today. I want to launch a few virtual machines and kind of go over some of the capabilities that are available to you if you do decide to use Microsoft Azure as your virtualization platform. So the first thing we're going to do is create a resource group. Resource groups are kind of like giant folders. Think of it like a company or an office building. For instance, we're going to be working with a laboratory, a virtual laboratory. So I'm going to create a resource group and call it Steven's Lab. Okay. And you do want to pick a region that is close to you just to reduce as much latency as possible. Because if you're, let's say I'm in Phoenix right now, if I start deploying different resources in, let's say, Japan or Australia, then every time that I try to access some of the services or files that are housed in that data center in Australia, there's going to be a little bit more latency than there otherwise would be if I were to have it somewhere like, well, US West, which may very well be here in Phoenix. So you just want to name your resource group, select your region, the one that's closest to you. Again, if you live in like Brooklyn, you're going to want to have it be in US East. So that's all we need. Just go ahead and create it, and we're going to check to make sure it passes, which it does. We're going to say create. So it's going to create this resource group for us. And again, this is where we're going to house all of our virtual machines, two of which we're going to create right here. So we'll go back to all services, and we're going to create a few virtual machines. Now, if this isn't right here in front of you like it is with me, you're going to go up here and just type virtual machines. It should pop up right here. Okay. Now, we don't have any yet. I've created a few in the past. That's why I have a lower balance than 200, because it does actually take up Microsoft's physical resources, their infrastructure on their in their data centers in order to create these virtual machines for you, and they do charge you for their usage. So something that you do want to get used to is when you're done with your virtual machines, you're going to want to delete them so that they're not gobbling up your credits that you have. And like, let's say that you were to create 4 virtual machines, one with Linux, one with Windows 10, and one with Red Hat Enterprise, and you were to just let them run for a week. Well, you may come back and forget that they're there. You may come back a week later and all your credits have been used. And not only that, but your credit or debit card has been charged in order to keep those virtual machines up and running. So it's pretty much just a long-winded way of saying delete your virtual machines when you're done with them. That being said, let's create a few. So we're going to click create as your virtual machine, and we're going to create 2. The first one I'm creating is going to be a Windows machine. So we're keeping all of these in your lab. For me, this is Steven's Lab. For you, it's whatever you named your resource group. Virtual machine name. We're going to have a Windows machine. So this is going to be Windows VM. Okay. And again, we're going to house this in the Western region. And we're not going to have Linux here. We're going to, I'll say Windows 11 Pro, okay? And we're going to come down here and make sure that you don't have the one that's just like one CPU and 1 gig of memory, because your computer will just be crawling. It'll be so slow. So don't go overboard with 4 CPUs either, because I'm pretty sure that if you were to use 4 CPUs, you can't actually deploy any more virtual machines during your trial period, because it only allows you to use 4 CPUs at once. So since we're just building 2 virtual machines, we're going to balance the CPUs. We're going to have 2 virtual CPUs on our Windows virtual system and 2 CPUs on our Linux virtual system. So go ahead and click this one right here. It should be good. And we're going to create a username, and we're going to say let's have this be Bill.Gates. Oh, you know what? Let's not do Bill Gates. Let's do Paul Allen. Paul.Allen. Okay. And choose whatever password you want. Just make sure you don't forget it. Okay. This should be good. Now just make sure you click this right here. All right. And again, we're looking for this green check mark saying that validation passed. Actually, I'm going to pop back here for a second, and we're going to go to, I didn't mean to do that. Back. We're going to go over to networking. Okay. And pay attention to this, because it is creating this virtual network for us to use. And the reason I say that this needs to be paid attention to is because this is the virtual network that we're going to put our Linux machine in, which will allow the 2 computers to talk to each other. We're going to get a little deeper in that in a few minutes after we create our second virtual machine, but just make sure that, just take note of this right here, okay? Everything else looks good. Review and create. And it's going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to pop back here in just a little bit and see you then. So you can see here the virtual machine is still being created, and that's fine. It's pretty normal that it takes a few minutes. However, don't be afraid to leave this screen. We can actually, while this is being created, go over here and create a second virtual machine. So we're just going to go back to virtual machines, and you can see that the status right here, it's creating it. And there's just a few components that it has to create. It's got to create a network security group. It's got to create its own NIC. And while it's doing that, let's go ahead and create our Linux virtual machine. So we're going to go to create Azure virtual machine again, and we're going to keep it in the same resource group, Stephen's Lab. This virtual machine's name is going to be the Linux VM, okay? And same region. Again, this will just minimize the amount of lag that we have, because if we have virtual machines like all over the freaking globe, it's going to take a while if they have to communicate with each other. So just make sure you have it all in the same region if you can. And for this one, we're going to actually use Ubuntu Server. And instead of the SSH public key, we're going to use a password. And for the username, we're going to have it be Linus.Torvalds. And our password, again, I'm going to use the same password here. Okay. Username must only contain letters, numbers. Oh, okay. So for Linux, I guess you can't have, that's right, you can't have periods. So we'll just have it be Linus Torvalds without the period. All right, not a problem. Just make sure you jot that down. For whatever your username is, you don't have to use Linus. So, all right, we're going to click next, go to networking. All right, get out of here. Now, this is where you're going to want to wait for your first machine to finish deploying. And the reason for that is, again, you're going to want to put it in the same virtual network. So as of right now, you can see right here that this little ticker is running up here. As subtle as this is, it's just telling us that, hey, the virtual machine is still being built. So your virtual network may not be ready to be deployed yet. So just be patient, wait a little bit. Eventually this will allow you to put it in the same virtual network as your Windows VM. So we'll be back here in a few moments as soon as this is all done being created. All right, there we go. Unfortunately, this was lagging behind by a few minutes, but eventually it did pop up here. So Don't worry if you don't see it. Just give it another 5 minutes and then try to create the virtual machine again. Here, lo and behold, you'll see Windows VM VNet. That is the one that we want. And it's going to create its own subnet here. That's fine. Let it do its thing. And yeah, this looks good. Let's review and create. Make sure that it passes validation. Awesome. And create. Oh, by the way, this is the price that you're going to be paying per hour. And this is why I said it's important to power down your virtual machines. Yeah, it's only 14 cents an hour, but you extrapolate that 24 hours a day across several weeks, it eventually does add up. Especially if you are running multiple instances of multiple virtual machines. So just be aware that you are being charged this amount before you create it. Okay, it's building the machine right now. And it should take around 5-10 minutes, just like the last one did, until it's all ready to go. But actually, from my experience, the Linux ones actually are built and deployed a little bit faster than the Windows ones. So it should only take about like 2, maybe 3 minutes. In any case, I'll see you back at the homepage. All right, you can see that the deployment is successful. We're going to refresh our page here. Okay, both systems are up and running, both in the same resource group. Awesome. First thing we're going to do is come down to the Windows VM right here and grab this public IP address. This is the front-facing IP address that we're going to use to connect to the system with remote desktop. Which, if you're using Windows, just go ahead and hit the Windows key down here and go up here and click. Mine is right here, but you're going to have to type remote desktop connection and go ahead and click into that and paste that IP address right here and click connect. We're going to remotely connect to this Windows computer that we created, and you're going to have to go down to more choices and type in that username that you had. For me, mine was paul.allen, and whatever password you use, you're going to enter it here. When you get the certificate, just say, don't ask me for connections for this computer. It's just making sure that you trust this computer, and just say yes. Okay, and we're in. Let's go ahead and maximize this. And this is an instance of another Windows computer. Now, if this is confusing to you, you can drag this bar and it'll move the actual virtual system out of the way. And just like any other window, you can minimize it. You can click it here, bring it back up. And if you lose track of what system is what system is what, I just lost my mouse. Where's my mouse? Okay, we're back. So you can just say no for all of these, since this is kind of just a temporary system here that we're going to use just to play around in. And what I was saying before is if you lose track of which one is your system and which one is the virtual system, you can always just come up to the top here and just grab this ribbon. And then if you see the IP address you see here is the IP address, the public facing IP address of the virtual system that you created. And you can always minimize down and open it back up. But for now, let's go ahead and close this. And let's go ahead and open up PowerShell. So come down to the start bar right here, type in PowerShell. And let's just open this as an administrator. Run this as an administrator. Now, because we created the two virtual machines in the same network, I want to ping the Linux machine just to see if we can reach it. So just to make sure that we're connected to the internet, let's go ahead and just say ping www.microsoft.com. And you can see that we do have a connection. It is receiving replies from Microsoft.com, and you can see that's the IP address right there that belongs to Microsoft. Okay, so we do have an internet connection. Let's see if we can ping the other computer, the Linux system. So the way that we do that is we're going to jump out of here and go back to our window right here, click on the Linux VM, and since these are in the same network, we want to use the private IP address. So that's 10.0.0.5. You can copy that if you want, or you can memorize it. We'll go back here, and we'll say ping 10.0.0.5. Okay, and it is receiving IMCP replies from it. And we're going to go over that in a little bit more detail, actually. So first thing I want to do is we're going to download a program called Wireshark. So go ahead and pop into Microsoft Edge. And this is always pretty obnoxious. I'm not a fan of Microsoft. I don't think anybody's a fan of Microsoft Edge. Sorry, Microsoft, but you just can't compete with Google Chrome. All right. First thing we're going to do is look up Wireshark. We're going to download that. Make sure you're getting it from the official website here. So downloads for Windows 64-bit. Go ahead and click through all these right here just to get it installed on your system here. Once you have Wireshark installed, go ahead and open it. And I'll walk you through how this works. This will just allow us to see some of the network traffic that we're seeing on our network interface card, both coming from the internet and getting sent back and forth to and from our other virtual machine. All right, go ahead and click Ethernet here and click on this little blue icon. And whoa, look at all that. Let's go ahead and maximize this. This is all the internet traffic that Wireshark is capturing on the virtual network card. Now, do I know what all this means? No. But what we can do is we can actually filter some of these packets for different protocols. And so we can get kind of like a more refined idea of the type of internet traffic that we are witnessing that is coming across the network right now. So what we can do is we could say, since we're actually using a remote desktop protocol in order to use this virtual machine, we can filter for that traffic. So if we could just come up here and say TCP dot port equals, and then 3389 is the port that we are looking for. So go ahead and hit enter. And this is all the traffic that is being sent between my computer at home and the virtual machine here. And you can see that this is 98 dot, what is this, 160 something? Here, let me pause it. Let me stop it right here. Yeah, so this right here, that's my IP address over, I mean, I'm using a VPN right now, but you can see that all this traffic that's coming over right now is traffic that is going directly between my system at home, my host computer, and the virtual machine that we created. So now let's say that we wanted to look at some DHCP traffic. So we can just get rid of some of this right here, delete that, and just say DHCP and just filter for that. Okay, we don't see anything coming over the network right now, but what we can do is we can pop back into here. Oh, let me scroll up. Let's get some more screen space here. And we can just say IP config. And let's say that we want to renew our IP address. So we can just say IP config /renew. And we should see some DHCP traffic come over here. Yeah, so doing this just effectively renewed our IP address, and you can see that came across the network right here. Let's do something a little bit more fun, shall we? We can remember how we were pinging our Linux system? Well, we can do that again, and we could say ping. What was that IP address? It was, I have to go back and check. So whenever you want to get out of this computer, remember, just minimize this up here. Go back here. Okay, 10.0.0.5. All right, so we're going to say ping 10. Let me actually click in here. Oops, 10.0.0.5. We're going to do -t so that it perpetually pings this computer. Okay, so our Linux system right now is receiving and replying to all of these pings that our Windows system is sending. Now, let's say that we wanted to configure our firewall to block all of these requests. Well, what we can do is we can go over to back to Microsoft Azure in our system, and we can go over to our Linux VM and we can say network settings, and we're going to look at this network security group. So we're going to click that right here, and we're going to click inbound security rules. Okay, so right now our Linux system is receiving all of these pings, all of these requests from our Windows virtual machine. Well, let's say that we want to block all of those and we don't want to clog up their network interface card sending all of these replies back. What we can do in this instance is that we can actually manually configure our firewall here in Microsoft Azure. So we're going to create a new rule and say add, and we're going to say that we're going to look for any ICMP traffic requests, and you can see that it changed the port. So ICMP doesn't really use port numbers. It's more of like a, it's a protocol to like test connectivity between two different NICs. So we're going to set it to look for any ICMP traffic coming over the network, and we're going to say deny. And just to make sure that this is prioritized, we're going to just make this 100. So it looks at this first, okay? And we're going to just say, we're going to leave this, deny any custom, any, you know what, we can change this. We could say like block underscore all underscore ICMP. And we're going to add this. And we're going to pop back over to our virtual system here and just watch what happens right here. Any moment now, you should see it saying that it stopped getting replies from the Linux system. Give it a second here, you'll see it. Okay, it took a little bit because it had to work it out on Azure's end, but you can see right now the requests are timing out. This computer is now unable to ping our Linux server, and we can easily undo that by popping back over to the inbound security rules that we were just at, and we can just take this rule and just delete it. Yep, we're gonna undo the blocking of all ICMP traffic. And now if we refresh this and we go back over to our virtual machine, we should see this start up again. Again, it might take a moment, but here we'll actually enter caps lock is on, ICMP. Yeah, check this out. So you can see reply request, reply request, reply request. I should have showed you this earlier, but when we blocked that, we just saw request, request, request. This computer was requesting feedback from the Linux server. And when we had the ICMP traffic blocked, we weren't getting that reply back. Once we nixed that rule, we're now getting replies back from the other system. Okay, so we're just gonna hit Control C here to end that. And I wanna show you one more thing that we can do with these virtual machines here. Let's go over to Wireshark and we're gonna type in SSH. We're gonna look for SSH traffic. And what SSH is, that stands for Secure Shell. And it's kind of like Remote Desktop Protocol, with the exception of we're not actually given this really pretty user interface, and we can't just like jump into another screen. Instead, we're just jumping into the command prompt of another system. Let me give you an example here. So we're gonna come back over to Windows PowerShell, and we'll type in SSH space Linus Torvalds at 10.0.0.5. Okay, we're going to say yes. And we're going to type our password in here. And you can see over here in Wireshark, it's now receiving this traffic that's coming over port 22, which is the SSH port. Okay, we're going to come back over here, enter the password, check this out. Okay. Now we're actually in the other system right now. Even though we don't have a really pretty graphical user interface, we're actually in the Linux command line. So we could say uname -a. Okay, so you can see we're using a Linux system here. It's running a distribution of Ubuntu. And how long has this computer been up? I'm going to say uptime. That's P. It's been up for 27 minutes. All right, who else is online? There's nobody, just us. And let's see, where are we? Print working directory. Okay, this is where we are. And what's around us? So, no files in here at all. So we're in a pretty boring system. Let's go ahead and exit here. So you can see that SSH is good for just kind of peeking around a system and seeing what's in there. I mean, this is kind of like a little bit outside the scope of this, but you can see that all that traffic was recorded here across port 22. And this is all different requests and replies and traffic that was going between our Windows VM and Linux VM, okay? So that's pretty much all I wanted to show you for Microsoft Azure, how you can create these systems, how you can generate traffic between these two systems, and how you can get them to talk to each other. You can SSH into one, you can remote desktop into one. Now you can actually remote desktop into this system as well if you have a distribution of Linux like Linux Mint, where it's a little bit more user friendly, and you by default have port TCP 3389 open that allows you to remote desktop in. But in any case, this is a little bit outside the scope of this video. I just wanted to show you wanted to demonstrate some of the things that you can do with these different virtual systems here. So let's go ahead and jump out of here. We can just close this right here. And as I mentioned before, we do want to make sure that we not only power down our virtual machines when we're done. Right now, they're still actually up and running. We just closed the user interface. But what we want to do is when we're done, in order to make sure that our credits don't get gobbled up by our virtual machines, we're going to come over to our home right here, and we're going to go over to resource groups. And this network watcher was actually created when you the first time you make a Windows virtual machine. What we're going to do is we're going to click all of these, and we're going to actually click. We'll do this one first, Steven's Lab, or whatever yours is. And we're going to say delete resource group. That's going to delete all of this right here. Both VMs, the network interface cards, the public IP addresses, the network security groups, all that's going to get deleted so it doesn't just gobble up all the credits that we have. And we can use those for other services that we may want to sample and play around with. And when you do delete a resource group, you got to type it in manually. So Steven's Lab. And we'll go ahead and just say force delete. So anyways, what that's going to do is that's going to delete our resource group here, and it's going to, in the process of doing so, delete all the virtual machines that we've created and free up those resources so it's not just eating our credits, okay? So that's what I wanted to show you with Microsoft Azure. Really cool way to create virtual machines without using your own system's resources. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask me, just put it in the comments. And yeah, take care, guys.